यही वो जगह है, यही वो फिजाएं, यहीं पर कभी आप हमसे मिले थे। इन्हीं हम भला किस तरह भूल जाएं, यहीं पर कभी आप हमसे मिले थे। यहीं पर मेरा हाथ में हाथ लेकर कभी ना बिछड़ने का वादा किया था। सदा के लिए हो गए हम तुम्हारे, गले से लगा कर हमें ये कहा था, कभी तुम न होंगी हमारी वफाएं, यहीं पर कभी आप हमसे मिले थे। यही वो जगह है, यही वो फिजाएं, यहीं पर कभी आप हमसे मिले थे।
Shanti, Sister Jayanti, and a big welcome to everyone to this special edition, a masterclass on Brahma Baba. And I know, Sister Jayanti, you're going to be giving many, and I hope this is the most unique. Just want to say a few things about Baba. I think one of the things that really, I think, touches all our hearts is how Baba took care of everyone. And it's always the small things, isn't it, Jayanti? And that's what I used to say to you as well. It's the small things that you do. It's not the big things. And so there was a time when there was no sugar, because in those days, sugar was more expensive than gur. And so then Baba said that gur is molasses, or what do you call it? Sugar cane, sugar, right? And so then Baba said that children should have sugar. And so Baba asked a child in Mumbai, and he couldn't find it. And he just replied, well, Baba, I can't find it. So then Baba said to Mama, children still haven't understood. And so Mama explained to him that if Baba says something, then, you know, it has to happen. And sure enough, the sugar came, and Baba was able to give sugar in tea to everyone. And also Dadi Gulzar explained how there was a mother who brought just one jar of ghee, this unsalted butter. And Dadi asked her how, from where, how, did you get this? And she said, I saved my 1 spoon of ghee on my chapati every day and collected it so that it could come to the yagya. So these are little things that I think really touch our hearts, our love for Baba, love for the family. Of course, there's many stories, and I'm sure people have heard them. And there's so many stories about mangoes, right, gentlemen? There's your own story. There's Bridge Monbai's story. Also, there was one time when Baba wanted to feed mangoes and there were no mangoes. And Baba had already announced during the meal, I don't know, lunch, must be lunch, that children will have mangoes. And there was no mangoes. And suddenly, within the hour, came a mango box. So amazing. Anyway, over to you, gentlemen. Thank you. And Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. It's lovely that you're in Madhuban and we can see the Tower of Peace behind you. And I'm assuming that it's not just a picture, but it's the real thing. And so thank you for that beautiful vision of Madhuban. And yes, so many stories that all of you have read and heard about Brahma Baba. And I thought I'd take a little bit of a different perspective on the whole story. Because I was asked this question, how did Baba use the 8 powers in his own physical lifetime? And it actually dawned on me at that time when I started reviewing the story in my own mind, that the whole story is actually about how Baba used the 8 powers. And the story actually begins in 1932, or maybe even a bit earlier, because that was the time that Baba started talking to the ministers inside, the mind, the intellect, and the sanskars, holding court with them and writing all his experiences down in a diary, which Lachu Dadi was able to keep and show us later. And that's a diary from 1982. And so today we've been hearing about soul consciousness, but Baba was actually practicing the stage of turning inwards in a very practical way. And through that period, between the time that Baba started this exercise of looking inside and talking to his mind, etc., and the time that he had those first visions in 1936, that was a period in which Dadi Brajendra tells us that he became more and more reflective. And so that stage of looking inside, the symbol that we have of the tortoise, of withdrawing and going inwards, that became a reality for those few years. Baba was never an extrovert in that sense of glamour and show, but Baba was very definitely very sociable, and so had a very wide circle of friends and, you know, those things. But within the family, now Baba would forget to come for meals because Baba would be lost in deep reflection. And Dadi Brajendra, the daughter-in-law, would go to call him and he would say, "I'm coming." But again, Baba would be lost in his own inner world. And then finally, when he did come, then he would be eating alone. That was his preference in the latter part in those few years. And so again, it was eating in silence, not speaking, not being disturbed, and just very, very simple meals. And so the power to withdraw, the power to turn inwards, that was something that Baba was already practicing. Shiv Baba must have touched him and given him that inspiration so that the vehicle, the chariot, could be ready to become God's chariot. And of course, then the visions and all of these things. But the 3 months that Baba spent in the mountains, in the Himalayas, during that period, Baba was preparing himself for the next step, the power to pack up. And the image we see is of everything being packed, bag and baggage, as they say in India, not just your suitcase, but also the baggage that you're going to, you know, the bed that you're going to carry with you to sleep on the train and everything. So Baba was actually packing up internally first, and then when he came back, and of course he wrote that letter to his partner that I found the kingdom, I don't need the donkey's world anymore. And give me whatever is my share, and no arguments, no legal disputes, no lawyers involved, just a simple statement. Whatever you give me is my rightful share, and that's fine. And so Baba accepting his share and then coming back within society. And Baba very much had to practice the power of tolerance. Gradually, all the family and friends, everybody began to say he was a sorcerer, he was a hypnotist, he was black magic, he was all the things that one could imagine. But here was a man who was highly respected within the community, a man who had brought himself up to the point of becoming a jeweler from being the son of a simple village teacher. And here was he now with kings and the viceroy of the British government and people of that caliber. And now people were saying that he was doing bad things. What sort of tolerance capacity do you need when you know that whatever is being said is completely false, no truth in it whatsoever? And yet, like today Baba said, there's a noise only when two hands clap. If one hand is making a noise but the other one stays silent, there is no clapping, there is no sound made. And so Baba, not defending himself, Baba not justifying anything, but quietly then going off to Karachi. But that capacity for tolerance, that big heart in which there's no outcry, why? No, Baba was understanding. It was another power, another energy that was guiding him at that point. He'd had the vision of Shiv Baba. He'd understood that he was to be an instrument for a new world, a better world. He'd seen the vision of the end and the beginning. So aware that this was not normal life that was going to carry on. Everything that was happening was extraordinary, was actually quite magical. And so on the one side, aware of this, and on the other side, this barrage that was coming to him from all directions. And quietly, Baba slipped away to Karachi, for the visions continued, and people who knew came to him in Karachi. And at that moment, a heart as big as the ocean, the power to accommodate, literally, physically, hundreds turning up at his doorstep, and he's the father of the people, and his instant big heart took it on, and he organized accommodation for 400 people. Now, you're used to looking after your own family, that's fine, but 400 extra people come to your doorstep. Now, that takes a lot of power to accommodate, but there he was, and he did it. His heart as big as the ocean, instantly. Just imagine the situation Baba found himself in. There's this voice in my head, and it's not a voice, it's a thought. It's not a sound I'm hearing, but it's this very strong feeling I'm getting. Do something, do something, do something. And he's not understanding. Is it my own mind speaking? Is there any motive that I have behind all of this? Or maybe it is the one who told me you have to create a better world, a new world. And so that question, faith, and the question, is it really God who's telling me, or am I going crazy? But the number one soul, and so of course, the memory of last Kalpa emerging, and that soul stood fast, and the faith never shook for even a moment. The question came, it was dealt with. It's God, it's God's work. And that faith continued to support him, and he became a pioneer in every respect, treading ground that nobody had trodden before him, really, truly carving out a new path that today we can see many, many others who followed that path and come to a stage that we would like to attain. But in front of Baba was only incorporeal God, Shiv Baba, that light that was guiding him. No one else, nothing else at all. And so the ability to discern, an intellect that was so clean and clear that it was able to discern that truly this is the one above, and that one is the one who's doing this. It was a gradual understanding, because that moment first, there wasn't that clarity of what is it that's going on? Why are people going into trance? Why is this one coming to me and saying, I'll give you a few thousand rupees if you give me a vision? And Baba saying, but I didn't do it. There's someone up there who's doing it all. But gradually it becomes more and more clear. And that discernment capacity stands Baba in very good stead through the whole journey, to be able to see a soul and to be able to understand past and present and future story of that soul. When some souls would come, yes, Baba would give them permission to surrender immediately. Other souls would come and they would stay, and their husbands would come knocking on the door, and Baba would advise that individual, the door is open, you can stay if you wish, Baba will look after you. If you wish, you can leave. Baba said to one of the Matajis who had surrendered, yes, if you wish, you can leave. And it's true, I know that woman. And it was very good that she did leave. Her husband did come, she did leave, and she was comfortable. And her love and faith always remained. And then through the generations, the family is still very much connected with Baba. But yes, it would have been very difficult for her to tolerate all the challenging conditions. And of course, her own faith was not so stable that she could say, yes, that love is going to help me overcome everything. So that ability to see the soul, know its wonderful qualities, but also know what would be the challenges that would come, and giving guidance to that soul, giving it permission. Yes, if you want to leave, Baba does not mind. Baba won't hold it against you. So that power of discernment right from the very beginning. And at each step along the way, everybody telling him, don't tell your community to sell their property. Baba, why are you telling them this? His friends, people who are in political life in high places. A minister, one of them came to see Baba. Baba, please don't tell everyone to sell their property. Nothing's going to happen. Yes, there's talk of partition, but it's never going to happen. It can never happen. And Baba's reply, well, the one above is saying this is what needs to happen. And of course, that friend never came back again because he didn't understand that one above. And of course, you've heard the story of Dadi Chandramani and many others, Dadi Shantamani, their fathers coming and surrendering and so on. But just that indication of, again, that discernment capacity, no influence of human voices. And no matter how intelligent the other person, no matter how high their Lokik position may be, but the voice that was coming, the message that was coming from above was the most important. And of course, yes, those who salvaged whatever they could, they were put to a worthwhile use, and those who didn't, to let their property stay. All of it was gone, abandoned. And then 1947, and the Hindus are all leaving. And the relatives of the daddies are all saying, you must leave, come with us, come with us. And Baba's saying, Baba will tell us when it's time to go. That total faith, that total surrender. And again, difficult times. The whole situation of the country has changed. It's now a Muslim country by law. And yet, the yoga power supporting them, creating the right vibrations so that everyone knew that these were the children of God. Baba's instruction to them, just stay silent. Be the angels who are here on earth. Be the powerful yogis who can spread vibrations of peace, and that is what will protect you. So whether it was through the partition war or beyond, meditation, meditation, meditation. And then at a specific moment, Baba saying yes to Didi, Dada Vishwakishore, Anand Kishore, not Vishwakishore, Anand Kishore Dada. Why don't you go and find a place which is far from the eyes of the world, where all of us can live together under one roof? That was the only brief they were given. But again, Baba trusting these two and a couple of others with them until this little group goes off. And when they come back and they relate to Baba all of this, Baba says, yes, this is the right place. Now, one can argue that Shiv Baba was so close to Brahma Baba that there was constant communication happening between the two. But also, it wasn't that Shiv Baba was there with Brahma Baba all the time. But yet, when Baba had a question, Baba would sit in silence and the answer would come very clearly. And Baba would have the faith that yes, this is the right answer. And so not just the discernment capacity, but also decision-making capacity. And the move to India, and of course, everything being orchestrated so beautifully by Dada Vishwakishore. So it was a very smooth and easy transition from the port of Karachi all the way up to the mountain in Abu, and the right place for them, where all of them were under one roof and all could meditate together, have classes together, and continue with that inner journey of exploration. And Baba, absolutely the pillar, ready to face whatever challenges came. They came right at the start in 36, 37. But beyond that, the challenges that came in Mount Abu, different nature, different situation, but yet challenges nonetheless. And times when the children who had been with him for all those years, some of them took leave and it was clear they had no intention of coming back. Baba's state of detachment was tested. It had been tested right at the very beginning. And it was, of course, that love and detachment that made him tell his wife, Yashoda mother, and his children what he was about to do, that he was surrendering everything to the yajna. And drama, Shiv Baba's grace. Yashoda Maya was given visions of Krishna. And so she understood that this was the future. And so she was able to accept. And because she accepted, then of course everyone else in the family also accepted. But now, a different story. That was the cutting of bondages with Lokik. And now, this was a Lokik children who he had given birth to through Gyan and had sustained them and supported them and mentored them. And now some of them were saying goodbye. Some Baba would send off on a mission. And Baba knew which ones would be coming back, and Baba knew which ones would say goodbye and be gone. And so many of the daddies, actually then their Lokik relatives supporting them. Certainly I know that this was true of some families in Bombay and in Pune, maybe other places too, but certainly those families I knew pretty well. Dadi Ratan Mohini's family supported her mother, and Dadi Ratan Mohini, Didi's family supported Queen Mother and Shilendra Dadi, and a place to step foot, a stepping stone for service in Mumbai was created. Brijendra Dadi, her family supported her for her mother, and that was in Pune. So all of these things were going on. Dadi Chandramani's father, his son supporting the father. So amazing stories where Baba knew what would be the future and how these fragile elderly folk would need that support, but also it would be a stepping stone for service. And so the partnership between the charioteer and the co-charioteer, and both of them working closely together. And Shiv Baba would give a signal, Brahma Baba would accept, but you could see the power of decision-making absolutely 100% working in such a beautiful, dynamic way. Continuous development, continuous development. Baba having to send his children out on service across to all the other parts of India. And Baba knew that it was time for service and the children didn't want to go, but it wasn't with a heavy heart. For them, some of them, it was a very heavy heart, but some of them understood and took the signal and went. And so the love and the detachment, but also the continuing sustenance and the start of Murlis being not just written by hand, but Murlis being cyclostyled and sent out. So Baba always, always a step ahead of time and knowing what it was that was the need. And of course, always, always Baba's faith, Baba's love for God, but also for the family, supporting everyone through a very, very challenging period, whether it was no food available, no medicines available, no human support available, whatever it was, Baba continued that journey. And then service beginning, and so many new children arriving in Madhuban. And Baba absolutely tireless in service from the early morning through to the night. 10:30 at night, a child would come and Baba would say, "Yes, child." And the door would be open if there was something that the child needed to talk about. Story about the party from Pune. And my grandmother was one of that group, and Dadi Janki was the group leader. And it was a group of, I think, about 9 or 10 women and one child. A mother had to bring one of her children. He was about 10 years old, and I know him. And so this particular group arriving in Abu, they knew it was rains and that the journey might be difficult, but they still wanted to go. They had permission from their relatives and wanted to go. And Baba, again giving a signal, sending a message down the mountain, "Why don't you stay downstairs?" And of course, there was no facility to stay except these rest places for pilgrims, the dharamshalas, and on the one side, the physical conditions weren't right, but on the other side, they had come all the way to meet Baba. They didn't want to spend a night away. And so the bus took them up the mountain, but it could only go so far. And then there was a patch of land about 1.5 miles long where the cars on the other side couldn't cross because of the rocks that had fallen and the mud and everything. And from here, the bus couldn't go. And so these women and this little boy, they carried their bits of luggage and they managed to cross all that and come. And they were received by Baba's children and taken to Pandit Bhavan. And it's about 10:30 at night, and Baba's waiting for them with hot water and towels. Simple women, housewives, so no celebrities. And just imagine Baba's waiting for them. Sorry, when I think about that scene, I get emotional. But at that moment, of course, this is the story of the scriptures, that God washed the feet of the simple women. But can you imagine the love that they felt and the surrender of their hearts to God through that love? And so, yes, Baba ready to tolerate and do everything for the sake of the children. And so all the different powers that we see, we saw Baba demonstrate all those powers, and you hear all those amazing stories. And so here's a human being. It's not God incorporeal who is giving up his sleep for the sake of the children. It was this man, but this man who had taken on the task of being the father of the people and whose big, big heart was ready to welcome each and every one. And so think about that picture of all the different powers, and you see Baba demonstrate each and every single one. Another story, and this time it's a story, I know many of the stories of Pune because I grew up there. I saw things at that time, and when later on in my teenage years, I'd go back to Pune. Again, I'd be meeting those same people, and Dadi was there. And so a chance to hear their stories and know a little bit more. But at one particular point, Dadi had started service. It had happened by chance, but Dadi's connection with people of all religions, all backgrounds. And there were these Muslim brothers who were coming to the center, and Mama had met them, and Mama also gave them, so that would have been 1964 that Mama met them. And Dadi had given them attention, but Mama also gave them a lot of love and attention. And one of them was very definitely a Brahmin, and the other one, Dadi would probably say he's the soul of the Prophet, because his whole purpose of coming into Gyan was he felt that the Quran was so valuable in terms of being able to share God's knowledge. He understood Gyan very deeply, but his interest was to find all the different statements in the Quran that were matching up with Gyan, and he wanted to see how it all fitted in together. And yes, Baba gave an indication that this soul wasn't a Brahmin soul, but definitely was a very powerful soul. And Baba didn't say that, yes, this is the Prophet's soul, but that was then Dadi's conclusion. But the other person with him, again, Muslim background, but for him, it became very clear that he wanted to come closer. His wife came into Gyan, the whole family did. They came to Madhuban, and Baba saw the woman standing, we have the courtyard and that little wall, that wall has many memories for many of us. So this woman was sitting there, and Baba had given her the name Nirmala. Her Lokik name was something else, but to make her feel comfortable within a majority of those who were from a Hindu background, she wanted a Hindu name. And so Baba gave her the name Nirmala. So she was seated there, and she was looking in the direction of the kitchen. And the kitchen was not the big kitchen downstairs that all of us have seen, but another kitchen that most of you didn't see it, some of you may have, but where the Toli department is and the place where they now have the bedding. But that was the kitchen, not such a huge place. And she was looking towards the kitchen, not a very pretty scene. Looking at the mountains is another thing, but she was looking in that direction. And Baba came out of his room and he saw her and called her across. And Baba said to her, "Do you want to help in the kitchen?" And that had been her heart's desire, because then she would know that she was truly accepted by the family. If she was allowed to work in the kitchen, it meant that the family embraced her and she belonged there. And so she nodded, and Baba took her by the hand and introduced her to Bholi Dadi and said, "This is a very sweet soul and she wants to help here. And so, Bholi Dadi, can you show her what she can do here?" And of course, immediate acceptance and part of the family. And everybody knew she was from a different background, but Baba had introduced her and they loved her. She was very sweet. And so she became part of that community. And so Baba's vision, that discernment capacity, and instantly applying it in a very practical way. And of course, being in the kitchen means a lot of cooperation with many, many others. And so Baba showing us how it's so important to work together, to cooperate together and serve together. And so definitely the power to face, the power to cooperate, each and every single aspect of the powers has been demonstrated personally by Baba. So I see the whole story of Brahma Baba as one in which all the powers were there from the very start, but you saw them being demonstrated in different ways at different times. And so Shiv Baba, the almighty authority, but Brahma Baba, the one who took that power and used it in a very practical way to set up all the systems of the yajna that we know of today. I want to look at Baba's life from yet another perspective. And that is the perspective of perfect balance. Think about the balance of compassion and courage. Compassion, very soft, very kind, very much a feminine trait in a sense. And courage, very much connected with the masculine, the power, the ability to move ahead and take a step forward. And the whole of Baba's life demonstrates this perfect balance of compassion and courage. And yes, in fact, both are very much together. If there's only compassion, but it's not put into practical use, there'll be many situations that come up in which if I lack courage, I'm not going to be able to do the right thing at the right time. But Baba, a very soft and tender heart, accepting all the children who had come, but yet at the same time, the courage to face whatever may come, because of course Baba knew there would be opposition. And the move to Karachi was partly to ensure that there could be some space. Otherwise, Hyderabad, a small city, and everybody crowded together, everybody into everybody's business, Karachi, a big cosmopolitan port city, space and a chance for everyone to breathe. But that courage of moving, but also accepting, it took both compassion and courage both together. Sending his children, young girls who knew nothing about the world, who'd been protected completely, and sending them into Maya's den like Bombay and Delhi. Baba would even say that Mumbai is a place of Maya, where everything of Maya exists. And Baba knowing that the power of purity of these young women would keep them safe. And so compassion for the world, that they need to hear this message, and the courage, the love and detachment with which he sent those young sisters out. And so it's not always easy to find somebody who has both these qualities, but yet in fact, it's true that out of compassion, when you have real compassion to serve and help and be kind, then courage also comes to overcome whatever obstacles may come in your path. And then we also see this perfect balance of the master and the child. Baba, of course, the master, absolutely, with that spiritual power and authority of being in charge. The Lokik authority, Baba did not care about that, because from being well respected to being absolutely shunned by his own brothers and the rest of the community. So there was nothing left of the Lokik prestige or position anyway, but Baba had willingly thrown that away. But now a great charisma, a great spiritual authority, very much the master who understood and knew how to do things and make things happen. But yet, at the same time, the child who was playing games. And I'll share with you one little incident. Didi Manmoini, was in the last few years Baba's constant companion. Prior to that, Baba had sent Didi to Delhi, and she was in charge of that whole zone. Delhi, of course, but also Punjab and everything in between, UP. She was overseeing all those activities in the north of India. And when Mama's left, Baba calls Didi to be the manager for Madhuban. And so she's there. And she would love to tease Baba, to make him light, because she knew that there were so many things that Baba was having to carry. And especially after that, Vishwakishore had left and Mama had already gone a few years by then. And so part of Didi's remit was to entertain Baba and make him very light and make him laugh. And so one day in the evening times was the times for laughter and fun with Baba. Afternoon times, around 4 or 5 o'clock, was time for badminton. But morning times, Baba was writing letters and replied to all the letters that everybody had written, the children had written, and then further on meeting individuals. And then later on this, around 6 o'clock, time for relaxation. And Didi brings out some nuts. One is a bag that has shelled pistachio nuts, and the other is a bag of pistachio nuts with their shells, salted ones. And Didi brings them both to Baba and says, Baba, tell me, which one is more expensive? What do you think? And normally I would have said, and Baba said at that time, that the ones without the shells were more expensive because you're otherwise paying for the shell that you threw away. But the thing about pistachio nuts, and I don't know now, I don't go buying nuts, but at that time, definitely, it was the other way around, that pistachio nuts in their shells meant to be, they were ready to eat. They were roasted and salted. So they were more expensive. And Baba looks at Didi and says, definitely, it's the shelled ones that are more expensive. And Didi teases Baba, Baba, you haven't been shopping for a long time. You don't know the market at the moment. And she's laughing and she's teasing Baba and making Baba laugh. A simple little thing. But somehow Didi knew how to make Baba laugh. And another sister also, Sandeshi, she was also one who would always find a way to make Baba laugh and just become light. So a child. And so absolutely the master. And when Baba was the teacher, Didi would have that distance and that respect. This is the supreme teacher. But when it was time to be playful, she would be playing with Baba. And so this perfect balance. But also when it was time for preparing the children to take on more responsibility, that was also an interesting time. And so it was in 1967, and Baba's called all the main people from Delhi and Bombay. These were the main places, and the dadis together. So Jagdish Bhai, Brishman Bhai, others who were in positions of responsibility together with the dadis, some of the brothers, they had come together for a meeting that Baba had called. And Baba told them, I want you to have a seminar together and you discuss whatever it is you need to discuss in terms of service and what should happen in the yajna. Now, up until then, Baba always with Shiv Baba giving instructions and everybody following those instructions. But, you know, nowadays they call it succession planning, and it's very much a part of corporate work. I'm sure many of you know these things more than I do. But normally in terms of spiritual teachings, it's a very natural progression, very natural process that happens. And usually then it's one individual who's given responsibility. And Baba, knowing the future, had become a child and said, no, you children take responsibility now, and you children decide what it is you want to do in terms of service. And so that's the brief they were given. And I've shared this story before, but I'll share it now. I was sitting on that famous wall in Pandav Bhavan, and I was chopping nuts. And Lachu Dadi had given me something to keep my hands occupied and out of mischief. And the seminar had started upstairs in that building where there's Nirvay Bhai's office, and up above those that had just been completed recently and was new, and the rooms hadn't yet been allocated for specific things. So it was just a meeting room. And the meeting must have started about 10:30, and about 12 o'clock, Baba comes out of his room and is walking towards there, sees me and beckons, and I leave the knife and the nuts and the plate just on that wall, and I come to meet Baba. And Baba doesn't say anything. Baba holds my hand and pulls me up the stairs, and I'm not supposed to be in the meeting, so I'm a bit concerned that Baba's taking me up the stairs, but Baba keeps pulling. And then again, we reach the room at the top, and Baba at that time, 92 years old, no support, nothing. Baba walking absolutely tall and straight with that royalty and dignity, no stick, no person to hold, nothing. And Baba even in fact pulling me. So he was carrying me almost, yanking me. And so then we're at the top. And again, I want to run. And Baba's yanking me into the room. And so I sit just on the edge of the room. And they kept space for Baba in the front. No chairs, everybody on the floor. Of course, the daddies were much younger anyway. But Baba, 92. And Baba sits on the floor, no cushion, no nothing. And semi-lotus posture. And Baba gives drishti to everyone. And they have 3 questions for Baba. One is about yoga, another is about service, and a third is a personal one from Ramesh Bhai. So the first question about yoga, and Baba answers that. The second question about service, Mama's gone. Can we appoint somebody else to play Mama's role? And there was so much service when Mama went on tour on service. Can we do the same now? Can Baba please appoint somebody? And Baba gives long drishti to Didi. Didi's asked that question. The first question about yoga had been put by Dadiji. Now it was Didi. And Baba then says, there can never be a second Mama. But all of you can play that role. Each one of you can leave your own centers, go to another center and serve around in that area. And there'll be very good service that happens. And this was a totally new idea for everyone. Mama's role was Mama, and they were Mama's assistants. And yes, they do service in their own center and so on, but to go on tour like that. And here was Baba encouraging them and in a way, letting them know what the future held also. I look back and I think Baba knew Didi and Dadi were going to be the ones playing a major role together. Baba knew that all the Dadis would come to be known as the Shaktis, and they would be playing a major role all over Bharat and over the world. And so here was Baba preparing them for that role and giving them encouragement to start playing that role. So the master in charge, but also the one with a lot of humility, encouraging others to move ahead. And so Baba, very, very engaged with everyone, and Baba very, very silent. Baba interested in everything, but Baba also in that awareness that the Avyakt stage, the angelic stage, the Karmatit stage was calling Baba. And Baba also then wanting the children to have those experiences of being called to that stage. So many, many stories about Baba that you must have heard and you'll carry on hearing. And I think over the next little while, there'll be lots of things coming up on YouTube and whatever. But just a glimpse of Baba from the perspective of the different powers, but also this perfect balance that Baba had. When you think about perfection, you think about all the qualities absolutely in balance. And so Baba demonstrated all of this. So not just the theory of the man who became the angel and who's going to become the first world emperor, but Baba showing us all of those qualities in a very real way as a human being in human form. Let me stop here and we'll say Om Shanti. And I also want to remind you that there's going to be that volcanic yoga Bhathi for the world, 16th, 17th, 18th. And so 17th, we won't be having this sort of program, but we'll give you all the chance to catch up on your 8 hours of yoga. The plan is for everyone to experience 8 hours of sitting yoga. Somebody said, well, can I go for a walk? I said, yes, if you do, but go on your own. Or if you do, go with somebody else. Just remember to stay in yoga. But how long can you walk? An hour, 2 hours, 6 hours is still sitting down yoga. And so that timetable must have come to you. You must have heard about it. You must have seen it. But it's the first time that the whole world of the Brahmin family, 1 million people, will all be focused on yoga so that Baba can touch us and show us what the next steps have to be in terms of service, so that we can complete the task quickly. But also, it's an opportunity for all of us to experience our own Avyakt stage in this very special Avyakt month, the month of blessings, so that then we're all able to also give visions to the world. The world is desperately seeking light, and many of them are very aware. Astrologers are talking about a turning point in 2022, and around the 18th of January is expected to be auspicious omens. And we know that that's true, but other people out there are also saying these things. So we'll meet you the following week again. Om Shanti.
Thank you, Sister Jayanti. That was absolutely amazing. And I was personally transported. I'm sure others were too. I had to run for a tissue as well. And I think it gives a whole new meaning to love being eternal, because when love has been shared, it is never forgotten. And as you said, Baba's love is eternal. So yes, everyone, thank you for joining, and we will be meeting on 24th. In the meantime, we have lots of homework to do and lots of big footsteps to fill. Thank you, Om Shanti. We'll end with a song.
You are becoming the song of your heart. How beautiful it is, how beautiful it is, as the flower blossoms for